Let's talk death. um, if you've watched my channel much, I think, shit, my battery's not charging. I think you'll know that I have this kind of massive aversion to dead things. And I don't know quite how that relates, to my personal situation. But I have some suspicions about the why of it. Huh. No, that one's not charging. No, that one might not. It's supposed to be charging. I mean, look. Nobody really likes dead things, right? But I feel like I have a relatively bigger squeamishness about dead things than maybe most people do. And I'm not sure about the why, right? Like, I've had some bad experiences, but death was not sort of a common thing in my life. So, for example, I think, once upon a time when families were closer together and stayed together, the older people would die and you'd see them declining, and you'd maybe go to funerals and whatnot. I went to one funeral. It was closed casket. It was for a friend of my mom's. Not quite sure. I think I was there because there was going to be a wake afterwards. And, I was in my early teens or whatever. That's the only experience that I can remember of someone dead. Someone whom I knew who was now dead. And I didn't know them very well. So it's like, great, what is it? It didn't severely impact me in any sense. After that, within my childhood and whatever, none of my pets or whatever died. We had a cat and a dog from when I was much younger. There were some deaths among pets, but by the time I was like 4 or 5, we had one dog and one cat for a long time. And then I went away to college. Actually, the dog died, I think, while I was still home, but he got smeared on the highway, and I didn't actually have to deal with a dead dog, or anything like that. Obviously, there would be dead bugs and stuff like that, and even those affected me pretty hard. And I guess little animals sometimes I would find dead. So I don't really know if I was exposed to an abnormally low amount of death. Certainly compared to people who lived on a farm or something like that, where, animals that you got used to were on your breakfast table one day. But I certainly didn't have to deal with humans dying very much, and not ones that I knew well. The first death of someone that I knew well happened in my house. It was, I don't know where to put her, but one of my earlier girlfriends. I mean, the second real relationship that I sort of had, but it was so fucked up in so many ways. And she had gone back to using drugs and Demerol, but a painkiller, and she had other issues, but anyway, she had moved in to live in the same house that I was in, essentially. Not to be with me or anything like that at that point. We were mostly, still friends, but I had moved on to someone else, and I think it's hard to explain her situation ever, but and that kind of affected me. I didn't see the body. I was away gaming for the day and came back and found out that she had died and been carted away. And, it was like a hole in my life and someone I was missing and whatever, but not like a situation where, I don't know what kind of situation it is. It didn't feel all that different from someone who moved away, right? And I had dealt with friends who moved away, and in that day, the internet was much, much smaller, and you didn't really tend to keep in touch, or I didn't tend to keep in touch with my friends who weren't around anymore, and now it's easier to find out stuff like that. Now, and as I've gotten older, a number of people I knew have died. Some of them just online, a couple of suicides, actually a handful of them. A couple of people who've died of medical issues, whatever. Some of whom I was closer with than others, right? Someone that I had, kind of an online relationship with, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to determine what the hell that means. But at least an interest in being with her, whatever. Some people I never met, some people I've met, some old friends. There was a kid who died in high school, when I was in school there, but not someone I really knew. So it felt like it was kind of, this, I don't know, it just never really impacted me very much. My first wife, her grandfather died, actually my first girlfriend, her mother died within a few months of us kind of getting together. My first wife, her grandfather died within about that same sort of time span. That kind of, in both cases, I think there was sort of that kind of more cemented our relationships, being there for someone, whatever. But those relationships would have existed anyway and may have been just as strong or whatever. So that was kind of, the only real experiences I had. And I don't know what that sort of revulsion, immediate, a bird dies on my porch or whatever. Luckily none have this year, but and it's just very hard for me to cope with it. I kind of have to shut down the same way I would when I'm in another situation like there's certain situations where you're in circumstances where you have to do something and you can completely shut down and just like mechanically do that action. I can think of a couple that come to my mind. One was whenever I got stuck on the overpasses in Binghamton, like I would hitchhike and people would drop me off in some stupid ass places, right, where all kind of highways are mixing up and everything in Binghamton. And I would just have to shut down and march. And there'd be no brain, I mean, like my only mind activity is like, go on. Something that I can't do when I'm faced with more complex tasks than walking, right? like I can't shut down and disassociate in that way to like deal with things that I should do in real life. I can think of three. One was a railway bridge where I was afraid a train was going to come. Everybody else was able to walk on it just fine. I'm there like, and I can see the water below me and everything. Another was on a cliff that, I don't know. I don't know how wide it was, but it felt like there was like no space at all. I think there was a reasonable sized path, but it was probably about this big. And it's like, I'm just like, and I'm so terrified of heights that I could shut down completely and cope with it. But boy, was it hard. It was like it took all my willpower to just shut down all the fears and everything that are there. And I have to do something kind of similar when, there's a dead animal or whatever. I'm always worried a deer will die in my yard because I have no idea what I'd do about that. Like, I guess call someone. But with like a bird on my porch, it's something I could just scoop into a shovel or something. But I really have to shut down, and that call someone is really, really fucking hard. Okay, so like when my wife died, my most recent wife, we had two. And that's too many as far as I'm concerned. Not in terms of the relationship or anything, just in terms of marriage is so fucking pointless. I kind of knew from how she had been the day before that something was wrong. I assumed she was ill. But, like, when she didn't make it up all day, I'm like having this terror that she's dead, this expectation that she's dead. And then when I finally, opened up her door or whatever, yeah, it was obvious, and there's a dead body there, and it's just like, I kind of panicked. I figured out, in that sort of shutdown mode, to get across the street and get my neighbor to call 911 for me. And then, I'm kind of like, I mean, that's a shock in so many ways, right? And then when my mom got very, very ill, and it looked like I should go home and help my dad with her, I was almost paralyzed. I said I would, but like, I don't know if I could have managed it. And in a way, it was kind of fortunate for me that she died within a couple of days, because I didn't, she went into the hospital and whatnot, and it was clear I no longer was as necessary an option. But yeah, I didn't go back or anything, and I can't do it for him either, now that he's dying. I mean, I don't know, but it seems likely. he's been in the ICU for, I don't know how long now. More than a week. 2 weeks, I don't know. I can't tell anymore. I can't tell anything. And it's just like, I've become so incompetent at doing anything. I don't know if it's like that fear of death or whatever, that revulsion, that avoidance, whatever. And I also don't know how much that plays into my own like unwillingness to do, the obvious solution to a permanent problem, right? And claim my one human right. But yeah, it's just, it's really, I feel frozen, paralyzed by all of this. And I'm wondering if I had seen more death when I was young, if I was more used to it, would I be more able to cope with these things? I don't know. I don't know if it's, I don't know what it is that's like just locking me in place and freezing me. But I have the feeling that like, it's not just the death. That it's just like, I'm afraid what's happened is that I, at some point or another, more or less abdicated all responsibility. And, I kind of said that to myself after I decided to stop looking for work. But even before that, I was very much hiding from anything I have to do. And I mean, that's always been what I do, right? But it's just getting worse and worse. And it's like, it's getting to the point where I'm not alive, right? And haven't been for many years. In some ways, I've never been alive, I would say. The only times where I feel like I really lived were the most horrendous periods of my life in some ways. And, maybe the most recent was running out of the house soon after my wife died. The night they took her away, I had to go for a walk or whatever, but like I felt really kind of alive at that point in a way of like the panic, the fear, the flight, just like and there have been other times where I really felt like, but for the most part, I've avoided good things as much as responsibilities and stuff. Like I just don't want, It's almost like, I don't know. Well, there's a phrase I've often used, which is, "This world is not my world." And that sounds like a very Christian thing to say, especially an early Christian thing, right? And it's not at all. But at some point or another, and I don't know when, it came to, I cannot even imagine a world that is mine anymore. Like I used to escape into fantasy and, hope that I could transit to another place or something. No, I just want it to fucking end, But, and I get my glimmers of hope when I'm drunk or something, but for the most part, no. There is no hope. And not even hope of dying, it seems. Just seems like it goes on forever and ever and ever. Like, if it was always stable, that would be okay. I could get used to anything. But what I can't get used to is things continually decaying or changing. Even change for the better is bad. And, it's like, yeah, I don't know. Pain moves from my stomach and my gut, which may or may not be physical. It's hard to tell. The tension may actually aggravate the physical issue to my chest. And I can remember feeling the pain in my chest when my first wife booted me. I don't know if I felt it this strongly right after my second wife died. I really don't. Like, it's hard. I don't have a real strong memory of that pain, but I've been getting it now. And, there's always hope, but didn't do me in the last time, so that I had that kind of pain, so I don't think it will this time either. Nothing seems to. And then there's the worry of, I should really get like my affairs in order so that I'm not too much trouble when I die. At least enough that, my brother can get an inheritance or whatever off me too. Everything's too fucking complicated. That's all I have to say. Should just be, working in a field every day and be dead already, but and not have to deal with all the complexities of the legal system and modern life and banking and all that shit. But even breaking away from it would be almost impossible at this point. I don't know. But I know I'm not made for this shit.